Yeah, but all right. We hear you. Sure, we hear you.
Can you? Rabbi, can you say something so we can make sure we hear you?
Yeah, how is everybody doing today?
Good, good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of technical problems today. I apologize. I'm not sure why, but that's part of my life. Okay, our life.
We can.
So the Maamar began explaining in chapter 2 that we see a difference even in the world of tikkun. The world of tikkun is the world of integration, the world of correction, the world of healing, the world that was constructed after the world of chaos. Is that we have two aspects in our lives, in our souls. One is called midos, one is called moichin. Moichin is basically the cerebral or cognitive faculties of a person, our abilities to reason, to analyze, to dissect, to understand, to appreciate something intellectually. And then there's midos. And midos are the emotions of a person, the emotional reactions of a person. And he said that there's a big major differences between them. They operate in completely different ways. Moichin, real intellect is all about growth and change. I can understand something today one way, but then you can explain it to me differently, and I could see it from a different perspective. I'm always curious and inquisitive. Somebody who remains stuck in a position and not ready to open themselves up to another position, this is not a way of understanding anything. This just means I'm stubbornly clinging to an idea without really being open to truth. Yeah. So the definition of moichin is really the ability of growth and change. To rethink it, see it in a different way, look at it from a different angle, appreciate another perspective, focus in on a different point. We all know in our lives, you continuously can reevaluate something, see it in a new way. And this must come from an openness to learning, an openness to be inquisitive, to be curious. And that's what reasoning is. And if you learn Gemara, for example, but this is really true about every wisdom, but we see it clearly, you learn Gemara or you learn Tanakh and the commentators, whatever you're learning, there's always that process of this is the way we think about it. But then there is a question, so we rethink it, but then there's another question. So we come to another conclusion, and then you rethink that conclusion. There's always these changes, these shinuyim, especially when you're introduced to somebody who may be greater in intellect, and he may question something I said, and then introduce me to an idea which may have been opposite of the way I thought about it before. And he said, because generally seichel is made up of pratim, it's made up of so many different details and so many different aspects, and therefore there could be different focuses. He says you grab something always from the edges. And when you grab something from the edges, whether you're grabbing a table or you're grabbing a cup or you're grabbing a box, you grab something from the edges. And the same is true in seichel. The edges represents that there is something defined, there is something limited, and you can grasp it, you can grab it. The concept of seichel is to define things, to box them in. I don't mean box them in to be limited, to think only in a box. What box them in means you have to have definitions, descriptions, ways of describing things. And that's what edges mean. You have ksavos. There are defined ideas, and then you can grasp it. You can appreciate it. You can detect it. You can understand it. And that's why one day I could see it this way, and then there's another detail that I didn't notice or that represents something else, and I could see it in a different way. Now
Rebbe
we
used
continue.
Rebbe used the example of moving a sofa, I think, last week. So two people are moving a sofa and they grab the edges, and then they realize, oh, there's other edges that'll make it easier to carry. And then they try to get the sofa down the hallway, and they try to do it long ways, and they say, oh, it doesn't fit. And then they turn it the other way. Oh, now it fits. It's all getting deeper and deeper.
Exactly. Right. And now we continue inside the next paragraph in the Maamar. If you open the source sheets, it's page 142, the second paragraph. You can go to theyeshiva.net and go to this Maamar Hameraglim. It's on the homepage, Maamar Hameraglim, and you will see the source sheets on top of the video or below the video. View source sheets. Amnam 142, the second paragraph. Amnam hamidos ein behem shinuyim. Midos, which are the emotional experiences of a person, they operate in a different way. They don't have changes, and he'll explain what we mean. We're referring to the embedded natural emotions. Let's learn first before the questions. Let's see, and we'll ask later. Shem b'toikav gadol, they have a tremendous intensity. They are very strong, very powerful. Toikav means like takif, like akbaykoyed, very intense, very strong. Ve'enam mishtanim la'olam, and really they never change. Even though through avodah, through working on yourself, one can create a change in their midas, in their emotional reactions. That's true. But the change, the growth, is in the tzir, in the form of the midah, not in its essence, in its software, not in its hardware, in the way it's expressed, channeled, harnessed, not at the core. Because midas versus moichin are something that in their core essence, they will not change. An example that's brought for this is from Avram, midas ha'ava. Avram oyavi, the midah, the channel that Avram Avinu channeled throughout his life was midas ha'ava. He professed, he possessed, he was personified uniquely by the midah of love, the attribute of love, as the pasuk says, Avraham oyavi, pasuk in Yeshaya, Avraham, my oyev who loves me, as a result of the test of the Akedah, of the binding of Yitzchak, his midas go through a tremendous transformation. Shenasa by midas hayira. He cultivates the attribute of awe, of fear, of reverence. After the binding of Yitzchak, Hashem says, now I know that you're a Yirei Elikim. You have Yiras Elikim. You have awe of Hashem. What's Atiyah Daiti? Now I know. Till this point, Avraham's life was operating around the midah of Ava, love. Here, Avram Avinu was challenged. He was asked by Hashem to do something the exact opposite. Avram, his whole life, fought against human sacrifice. He fought against sacrificing another human being, never mind your own child, any human being. Certainly your own child. Remember that part of the pagan practices of the time and even of later times, sadly and horrifically, included child sacrifice. That's why the Torah is so adamant about the Melech, right? The idolatry called Melech, where they would pass their child through fires and other forms of idolatry, too painful even to graphically describe what parents did to children based on the pagan rites, based on the pagan cultures and traditions of idolatry. So Avram Avinu fought his whole life against this type of immorality. His paradigm was Ava. This is how he lived. This is what he breathed. This is what he viscerally experienced, and this is what he gave to so many people. That's why the stories of Avram Avinu in the Torah revolve around his connection, his affection, his achnasas orchim, his extraordinary hospitality, his outgoing nature to publicize, to promote, to connect to people, to bring in a new awareness into the world, to fight for the underdog, to protect the vulnerable and the innocent, to feed the hungry and the destitute. And this was a revolution in mankind. Avram Avinu, Hashem says, you'll become a blessing for all the nations of the world. And then suddenly, towards the end of his life, there is a new test, the test of the Akedah. And here we say every morning, Ribbono Shel Olam, K'moshe Kavash Avram Avinu es Rachamov, Kein Tikbosh Rachamechas Chascha. Avram, so to speak, Kavash means he conquered his compassion. Here he had to take his child and bind him and offer him as an offering. I mean, not ultimately, but this was the test. So the pasuk says, Ata yadaiti ki yirei Elokim ata. Now I know that you're a yirei Elokim. Now I know not only about your attribute of ava, but also your attribute of yireh, of awe, of reverence, which is a completely different mode. It's a completely different experience. But this was a momentary directive of Hashem. This was not redefining his entire life. This was at this moment, Hashem wanted him to employ a different type of midah, a different type of characteristic. Even at that moment, the yireh, the fear of separating from Hashem, came from love. Because love includes also the fear of disconnecting. I love you so much, I'm afraid of disconnecting from you. This is a type of yireh that's an outgrowth. It's a continuum of love. You have a type of yireh, I'm afraid, I'm fearful, or I'm in awe, I'm in a form of reverence. There's really a yireh that's essentially just an outgrowth of love. You're too good. I love you too much to be separated from you. I'm afraid of this separation because the love is so intense. What's the point here? The point is, ve'im kein einzig shenishtanu midosav me'ava liyira, ki im shenitosav etzlei b'mizdas ha'ava shemitzida ba gam inyan yira aval einzig shina me'ava liyira. So it's not that Avram Avinu's midos were essentially in their core transformed from love to awe. No, it's that the Ava now acquired or cultivated a new dimension, also the midah of yira, also the midah of awe. But it's not that there was an essential transformation from a person who's filled with Ava to a different midah, to yira. And even after Matan Torah, Sha'avoid he beslapshus nefesh alikis benefesh abahamas v'tachlisi l'shanis midas hativim. After Matan Torah, where the avoid is always the divine soul enclosed in the animal soul, and the purpose is to work on your midas and to change your midas l'shanis midas hativim. There's a famous expression from the Reb Saadia Gaon. Reb Saadia Gaon says that the soul came down to the world. The main tachlis, the main purpose is to work on your midas. This is discussed in many svarim. The Vilna Gaon says this in the many svarim of Musar and Machshava and Kabbalah and Chassidus, that the tachlis of the soul, the divine soul coming into the animal soul, is to be able to work on my animal emotions. We all have animalistic emotions. Our natural dispositions, our natural characteristics, our natural emotional reactions. Natural could mean natural from birth, natural because of how I was educated, nature and nurture, natural of what I have within my genes. But L'Poel, this is how I'm reacting, this is how I live. And the purpose of Avodas Hashem is to work on my midas, not to take my midas for granted. And this is one of the mistakes we make. Just because I am this way, I'm reacting this way, I could work on myself. I have to work on myself. It's not easy to work on yourself. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was once verbringing. He was once verbringing in the earlier years, I think it was a Shavuos, and a Shavuos or maybe a Simchas Torah. It was a Yom Tov. And the Rebbe said in the middle of one of the talks, he said that, you know, real learning is hard. You have to work on it. But it doesn't come close to the hardship of working on your midas, of redoing your midas, you know, your emotional reactions and your impulses and your visceral responses to things. He says to work on your midas is extremely difficult. And he picked up his hand to the crowd and he said, try it and you'll see that I'm right. Try working on your midas, you'll see that I'm right. It's an avodah gdoila, it's a big avodah. You also have to have direction. How do you do it? Sometimes a person could work on their midas in the wrong way. If they work on it with anger and with guilt, then it can get even worse. Like the Chassidic Rebbe once said, when you break a taiva, so from one you get two. You know, when you break a cookie in half, you split the cookie. So now instead of one cookie, you have two cookies. He said, when you break your taiva, right, from one you get two. You break your anger. So from one you get two. So you have to know how to work on your midas. The working on the midas has to come from what we're going to learn about this, but it has to come from a place that really allows you to fix, to repair. So he says that's true. A person's tachlis is l'shanos midas v'tovim, and he uses big words. Shazeh kol ha'adam. Shazeh kol ha'adam means this is the whole purpose of a person. So this means your wife tells you something, your husband tells you something, your child tells you something, a stranger tells you something. You get a text, you get an email, you get a WhatsApp, whatever it is, and emotionally you react a certain way. A person needs to know, yeah, I need to work on it. This is part of growth, working on my midas, developing my midas, understanding what's happening, and learning how to work on my emotions, on my attitudes, on my responses. He says that's all true. This means that I have midas that initially, their expression, their form is not good. It's not the way, it doesn't live up to my true potential. And through my avodah, I can redo them, that they should express themselves, their tziyur, their form should be positive. Aval hamidos atzmam eina mishtana. The avodah is how I experience my midas, but the midas themselves don't change. The same midas that were there before, b'kav hachesed and b'kav hagvura. Hine oisam hamidas achshavim, hine oisam hamidas atzmam achshav b'tziyur hatayv. These midas themselves are now in a positive form and a positive tziyur. The Yisedim is a furthermore. Gamay de havoida de tshuva. She boyfriend shalos hapcha. Lahafriches hamidus menakotza lakotza. Even in the avoida of tshuva, where a person transforms his life from one extreme to another extreme. Hine gamba avoida zu aleh shinoy rak b'tziyur hamida. Even in tshuva, the main avoida is in the form of the midah, the software of the midah, the way the midah is expressed. But again, not in the core essence of the midah. That doesn't change. That's who the person is. Take, for example, a transformation from gvura mode to a chesed mode. Gvura is strength, chesed is benevolence. Hine achshav u'bakas al ovri ritzeni yizbarach. For example, let's say you have a person who's angry. You just get angry. You know, you're triggered. There's a profound anger there, and you're getting angry. You get angry. This one disagrees with me, I'm angry. Spouse disagrees with you, you're angry. A child disagrees with you, you're angry. Your friend disagrees with you, you're angry. And it's an anger that contradicts, and it runs contrary to the whole mitzvah of ahavta l'recha kamocha. You should be tolerant. You should love your fellow like you love yourself. A tnu of closeness, connection. But this anger is undermining me, and it's very real. It's part of my midos. And I can feel it, and I can experience it. So one avoid is, he says, that a person really rechannels it. Instead of getting angry at people you really love and at people you should be close to, get angry at negativity. Stop tolerating abusive behavior. Stop tolerating things that run contrary to Hashem's will. That's number one. Regular avoider, this is the type of shinui. Rechannel your midos. Shuva does something even deeper. That a person really can transcend anger. Because even anger at those who transgress Hashem's will, this is also not the purpose. The Gemara says, famously in Brachas, that the purpose is the sins should end, not the sinners. So real tshuva is that I should completely liberate myself from anger. But But still, that doesn't mean that the core of my midas hakvura has been transformed. If this is who I am, this is who I am. I'm still that person of gvura. It's just expressed in a different way. Kemai, for example, what does it mean it's expressed? B'midas hamirirus. Midas hamirirus means somebody who's introspective, and there's an element of mirirus. Mirirus means remorse, introspection. I experience mirirus from the word marer. There's a bitterness. I'm very aware and I'm very sensitive of different flaws. Or marish chayre b'tzir hatoiv, or a certain form of introspection and introvertedness, but in a good way. Marish chayre usually is like sadness, melancholy. But I mean, he says in a good way. What do we mean in a good way? For example, somebody who becomes a diligent learner, which generally comes from a little marish chayre. People who are more social and more extroverted, it's hard for them to sit and focus and learn. People who are more marish chayre, you call them antisocial, they're bookworms. So he says, this is a positive outlet. Not to get depressed and not to get bitter, not to get frustrated, just to put in your energy into internal growth. There's certain positive things that come from a disposition that is more introverted, more alone, more solitary, more melancholy. The same is true in the opposite. Somebody who's in the line of chesed. In the beginning, sometimes chesed can also be expressed, not necessarily in a good way. Somebody who's completely uninhibited, there's no boundaries, there's no limitations. It's called klipas plishtim. The husk of plishtim. Plishtim comes from the word mavoi hamafulish, complete openness. Says Yishmael took Avraham Avinu's chesed, but it was not a chesed that was channeled in a positive way. Yadai bakal v'yad kol, but it's a person there's absolutely no boundaries, no restrictions, no limitations, no inhibitions. And it says it could be ultimates. It says the Gemara says that klipas plishtim was litzonas. It looks like fun, this type of mockery and fun, but it's not a fun that is rooted in the deeper values of a person, deeper spiritual values of a person. So he says this type of chesed in igam kashem mahapach zes hadei aveda de tshuva. Even if tshuva helps you transform it, nisharu b'kav hachesed u'mora leveina dafka. You still remain in this kav, in this mode. Mora leveina means the opposite of mora shchayre. They would attribute moods to the different gulls. The black gull, gallbladder, the black one, and the white one, and the red one, and the green one. So there's Mara Levena and Mara Shchayre. Mara Levena is the expression for somebody who's al lebedika man. She's a Mara Levena, the white gull, white bladder, al lebedika. And Mara Shchayre is black, is more melancholy, more sad. It's a different expression. But he remains Mara Levena. Because the core of my midah, I can't change. This is one of the big differences between the moichin of a person and the midas. The moichin yeshinuyim. In moichin there always changes. Mashenkin hamidas heim betoikav gadol shem b'em shinuyim. Midas have an intensity. Their core is extremely powerful. They're not changing. Moichin, the idea that I had tomorrow or the next year or in 10 years, if I'm really open, I can completely reverse the theory, completely reverse my understanding of it. And that's what real moichin is. Always change, always growth. He says, midos, even with avodah, even I work on myself. So I work on channeling my midos, how they're going to be expressed, how they're going to be manifested. It may not only be channeling, it may be even that the whole midah is expressed in a completely different fashion. It's not just the same midah, the same attitude expressed for different people or different ways. But the whole midah itself takes on a different shape. Yes, it takes on a different shape. I'm pliable, I'm flexible, takes on a different format, it comes out in different ways. But the core midah remains in the person. That you're not going to change. Even Avram Avinu, Akedah brought out Yireh, but essentially he remains the midah of Av. Different souls have different middas, and the core of the midah you're not going to change. That remains. And you can't get frustrated about that, and because you have to really appreciate that the core midah, I can work on how I understand the midah, how I process the midah, where it comes out, what it's accomplishing, what it's doing, who is it being expressed and in what context, and that's all important to work on. He says that's the purpose of the person. You have to work on your midas.
Well,
But if the midah has
midah
completely
itself, that's all the software. But the hardware of the midah, well, he spoke 3 levels here. There's changing the software, there's changing the hardware, and then there's the chip. He says
are
the
we able
software,
to?
that's what a person has to work on.
Are we able to identify?
For example, I'm
that?
angry. I'm an angry person. Yeah, get angry at the right people and at the right things. There's a
Are we
deeper
able to
level
identify
where
a
I don't want to
core?
get angry. I'm going to go beyond anger, but still, the core of gvura, the core of the anger is going to come out. It's going to come out in a different way. I'm going to repackage, so to speak, the entire expression of the midah.
why?
What
What do you ask?
What is the core midah aside from its expressions? Like, are we able to identify something tangible, which is the midah in itself, aside from the various particular expressions of it?
Why?
Yeah.
How do you change your midas? Or is it just
What?
it's natural? Or is it that your midah is natural?
Yeah, that's what he's going to discuss. Why is this? Why is this? So let's look at the next 2 lines, next 3 lines. Gimel. V'hinei tam hadavar shebamidas ein shinuyim, ulefi shahamidos hem hizgalus hashrosha pshuta be'etzem hanefesh mamash. The reason that in the midas themselves there's no changes is because midas reflect, very hard to translate these words. Hashrosha pshuta be'etzem hanefesh mamash. They are rooted. Hashrasha comes from the word shayrish. Something is mushrish means it's rooted. They are rooted in the core of the soul, mamash. And that's why midos will never change, because in the core soul, there's no changes. And midos represent something that is embedded, even if it's in an undefined way, pshuta, mufshat, in the etzem hanefesh mamash. And this is what he goes on to explain now in the continuation of this Maamar, of this section of the Maamar. What's the point here? What is the point here? This is a very, very powerful idea in life, understanding how midos work.
Rabbi, the Maamar used the lashon earlier, mushchalos rishonos. It sounds like the midos are that.
Interesting. Yeah, so muskalos rishonos means that even in cognition, in our cerebral abilities, any branch of wisdom has, certain paradigms. The Rambam has a sefer called Milois Hahigoyen, meaning words of how to. It's basically about linguistics and how to define things and how to think about things. So over there, he says that there's some basic paradigms without which you can't continue. He says, for example, is a part smaller than the whole, or identical to the whole, or larger than the whole? He says you have to accept that a part is smaller than the whole, and then we can get to the next step. He says you have to accept that something that's square has corners, and then we can go to the next step. Those are called muskalos rishonos, basic paradigms. At some point, even in much more complex and sophisticated branches of wisdom, there's going to be a why, and then, okay, that sounds familiar, and then at some point there's going to be azay. So that's muskalos rishonos. So you're saying midos have that nakuda. I understand what you're saying. Very well said. The point here is that when you talk about the real midah, there's a therapist I know. He's a very successful therapist. So he told me once that I asked him, "How do you know that you're getting through to somebody in a real way?" So he says, I'll talk to a patient and I'll ask him about his life or her life, and I'll say, why do you think you're feeling this way? They come in, I'm feeling, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, I'm never happy, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I just want to run away, I'm detached, whatever your your visceral reactions are. And it's very intense. It's very intense. I'm miserable, I'm miserable. And he says, the first thing is, I'm curious. I start asking, why are you angry? Why are you miserable? Why are you upset? What is going on? And they'll start describing things of their life and their reactions to it. And they'll have a reason. Why do you think you're reacting this way? Because this. But why this? Because this. Why? Because there's always an explanation. Why? As long as they're explaining, he says, I know that I haven't touched the real self. We're still dealing with very superficial expressions. He says, and then at some point you go deeper. And I'll ask him, well, why is this important to you? Well, it's important to me because I want respect, or I want validation, or I want to feel important. But why is it important for you? Because I want this, because I want that. And the person will often have another answer. And then we peeling layers and layers and layers. And he says, and then at some point, could be after 9 months, could be maybe after a few years, could be after a few weeks. That depends where the person is. And then I'll say, but why is that important to you? Why does that trigger you so deeply? What is this doing to you? What is it touching in you? And why? So the person will just put down his head, and maybe a tear or a few tears will come out of their eyes, and the person will just shrug their shoulders and say, this is who I am. This is me. I don't have a reason. This is what I want. This is me. This is part of what the Rebbe is saying here. I can work on so many aspects of my midas, but ultimately, he says, you're going to go back to the core. The midah is mushrash. It's a reflection of the hashrasha pshuta b'etzem hanefesh. It's the internal design of a person at their core. That's what the midah is reflecting. The midah is reflecting the hashrasha pshuta b'etzem hanefesh. Every soul, every nefesh, there's hashrasha pshuta. There's that which is embedded in it. It's what it comes with. This is what this soul is like. It's what's rooted in a very deep, deep way. And it's not clearly defined because the soul is not defined. That's why he calls it pshuta. Pshuta means simple, it's undefined. But it's rooted in it. It's rooted. And the midah is expressing that. That I can't change. I can't change the core of my soul. I can't become not me. I don't have to become not me. I have to be able to accept that and embrace that. There's a lot of work with midas, but the work is not to change the etzem hamidah. The work is to understand what I'm really looking for and to be able to express it in a healthy, productive, meaningful way. The question is, how do you know if you're experiencing your intrinsic midah or a trauma in you? That's the big question. That's the question of today's generation. How do you know what you're experiencing? And I think that's what we're going to be learning here. And that's the value of understanding this. A trauma I can confront. A trauma I can even understand to a certain degree. I can see it unfolding. Trauma basically hijacks me. My real midah expresses me. And that's a very big difference. Trauma hijacks me. It abducts me. It makes me not me. It puts me into a prison. What is trauma? Trauma is basically living life from a very restricted and narrow place. That's what it does. My reactions are coming from a very narrow place. I'm like in prison. I'm like in solitary confinement. My reactions are all, they're all expected. It's like, here we go again. Because it's like frozen. You know, the neuroscientists and psychologists speak about how you know the amygdala, the limbic brain, the reptilian brain, it's like frozen in time. And 10 years later, 20 years later, I'm still reacting from that space. It's like the fire alarm is sounding all the time, and I'm always in this fight or flight mode. So what trauma is doing is it's not expressing me. On the contrary, it reduces me to a very small reptile or a big reptile, maybe an alligator or a crocodile. That depends on the situation. If you have, if you're a big guy or a small guy, but basically it reduces me. It doesn't express me. We're talking here about the midah, that when you go deeper and deeper and deeper, the trauma will cause my midas to be channeled in unhealthy, unproductive, sometimes immoral, sometimes destructive and pitiful ways, and ruin my relationships with myself and with my family and with other people, and certainly with God. So working on my midas is that I want to make sure that the trauma is not obliterating and obscuring and eclipsing and crushing and repressing and amputating the flow of my emotions freely, uninhibitedly, in a free and emancipated way. So that's the exact opposite. So trauma takes your midah and forces it into a particular mode, and that it's expressing itself in a very, very petty way, trying to survive based on the skills that it has learned based on its traumatic experience. Am I making myself clear? Working on my midas means...
Absolutely.
Working on my midas means getting through all that. So the Rebbe says it's not changing your midah. Now, this is an unbelievable idea because sometimes we think in life, I have to get rid of myself and become a new person. He says, no, no, no. Moichin, the world of Moichin, is a world where change is necessary and essential. And that's the beauty of it. You learn and you learn more, and then you reverse your theories, and you discover new ideas. And sometimes you have to regret and realize that I made a mistake. And that's the concept. That's what a healthy mind is about. That's what a healthy mind does. There's always growth and change and transformation. And somebody who's stuck in a particular idea for eternity, they're stuck. That's also a trauma. Trauma is stuckness. Trauma is detaching you from infinity, from growth, from options, from availability to real growth. Now, sometimes people in their moichin are doing well, but their midas are like trapped. So moichin is always changes. He says midas, there's a lot of changes in the expressions, in the manifestations, how it's being channeled, what it looks like. But the core of the midah, this is who you are. There's no why. Why do I need this? This is who I am. I don't have a why. It's not logical. It's called hashrasha. Amazing words. Hashrasha pshuta be'etzem hanefesh.
One word Rebbe hasn't used yet is MS. The corners of the hole, whether the hole is square or round, it's a true thing. You can't. It's not. It's an MS thing. It's round, and also the shores of the midos is a MS thing. It's a reality that Hashem made as a
the core of the midah is MS. It's not a lie. It's not a trauma. It's not a lie. It's basically the soul that God designed.
Why?
Yeah.
So is it true from the Rebbe view that even though we have the nature like that we have to like whether we control or try to change midas, is it that the way that the nature we are, that the way our neshama brings it out together? Is that mean the Rebbe saying we cannot control ourselves or we can?
It's not about control. Here's the question. Are we able to identify a tangible core midah that remains stable even as expression of it changes? How could we describe this? Okay, that's a great question. It's going to become clearer as we continue learning. Very happy to know that we aren't supposed to change our true essence, especially even Avram Avinu did not. Now I understand better that working on yourself, right? Understand better the working on, even on a positive midah that may be out of balance. Yeah, sometimes you have something positive, but it's out of balance. So there's always a lot of work. But what's the work? The work is get the trauma out of the way. Let the midah shine. Let your true values come out, right? Let the midah be an expression of my true values. And that's inner work. It's inner work. It's inner awareness. It's opening myself up to what's going on in me. But it's always opening myself up to what's going on in my truth, in my own truth. And respecting my soul, really respecting the design of my soul. That's the idea of midah. Midas requires a lot of inner self-respect. This is my channel. This is my avodah. This is who I am. This is who God made me to be. Moichin allows me to understand things that are not me. That's the beauty of intellect. I can understand things that are not me. I can understand you, and you're not me. And I can respect you. Okay, we'll take a break here. Tomorrow morning, we have a class at 9:45. It's a Parsha class. And we will, Be'ezer Hashem, continue this Maamar Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. Wishing you all a beautiful and inspiring day.
Thank you very much.
Good tug, Rebbe. Before you leave, I think the young man was asking how someone recognizes their own midos so that they're able to change them. Like what the midos of the avos and the neviim and the tzaddikim are what are the more or less perfected midos, the pure midos. So if we compare our behavior in any moment to what would a tzaddik be doing now, or what would Abraham Avinu or Yitzchak or Yaakov or Yosef be doing now, that's a way to monitor or observe our midos.
Right. Yeah. Very well. I think you said it well.
Yeah.
And the question is, each and every one of us, we have to remember that to work on our midos, he says, Zeh kol ha'adam. This is the whole purpose of a person.
Why?
What's the Kutzker mean by when he says one becomes two? What's that? What does he mean?
Why?
Can Rebbe give a shtickle example even? Or?
I think what the Kutzker Rebbe meant was that you have to know how to work on your midos. If I just break them, it's like if I'm angry, then I'm angry. So I'm gonna suppress my anger. I'm not really dealing with it. I'm making it worse.
Rabbi, if we go deep enough beneath the individual midos, aren't we gonna hit something that is not different for each person? For example, a person gets angry because of an individual trauma, because of this and that. But you push deep enough, you get to the core nature, maybe of even of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, or of the neshama at its depth. So it wouldn't be an individualized midah.
I would say that behind all the trauma, there's a core midah that we have to cultivate and caress and embrace.
But is it individual, ours, or is it?
It's
just
very individual. It's very. There's obviously collective trauma, but there's also individual. And really, I would say that's what it seems to me that what trauma does is it diverts my midah. It obscures it. It confines it. The word I'm looking for is it chains it. That's what it does. It literally puts it in chains. A lot of discussion now about get abusers, right? Goodness and this. What is that? The expression of Chazal is don't keep a woman in chains. But emotionally, what is that? Emotionally, that it's the concept of trauma chains me. It puts me in chains. That's what it does.
Damage.
A damage, yeah. I don't even know my core midah anymore. I'm just trying to survive. Now, it may have helped me. The trauma taught me skills of survival. Fight, flight, space out, detach, get angry, jump out the window. You know what I mean? It may have saved me. And that's why you have to be thankful to it and have compassion for it.
Wow, I got one more question.
1 second. But I can't now become a victim to it. So I want to peel away the layers and get to my pure midah, my pristine midah, which is not bad. I may have to see how it was channeled. Maybe it was channeled in the wrong way. I'm very, very angry. At the core, there's gvura there. I'm very sensitive to certain things. Yeah, gvura is sensitivity. I am sensitive. That's what people think gvura means you're not sensitive. No, you're very sensitive. There's an intensity because I'm sensitive. Now I'm expressing that sensitivity by screaming and by getting angry and by hollering. Your soul came down to work on your midos. Discover your inner gvura. Discover what you're really looking for. And when you discover what you're really looking for, you'll find a pristine, beautiful little gvura. You don't have to channel it this way. You have to respect what gvura really needs. Same as true chesed. Chesed is, I'm looking for very deep relationships, connection. Yes, that includes, I need attachment, approval, validation. I feel connected, and I feel important. I'm just giving different examples. Now, it may be expressed in a very traumatized way. It may have been encumbered or suppressed or in shackles or amputated or leaking out in all types of strange ways, which are not really helping me. If I can peel away the layers and I can get to the core is the core. This is who you are.
Why?
Very beautiful stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also a very emotional person. So whenever I want things I want to have, I want to email something later to you privately if I could about something else. So my other question is, can I Rebel Huawei?
Yeah.
Is me though your nature, when you grow, like the Rebbe said, you have to come to not control, to come and work on your middles. Is whatever you are, does that mean that you have to work on yourself no matter different what's happened through the situation?
That's all part of self-work, Reb Zalman.
Yeah. I can see you call everybody Reb Zalman, even though I'm just a young bacher.
He doesn't call me Reb Zalman. He calls me Reb Aaron.
No,
because Reb Aaron is Reb Aaron, and Reb Zalman is Reb Zalman.
And Reb Zalman, I would like to see you in 20 years with a nice wife and some children, and you're going to be such a nice tati and such an erlich yid. You want to grow. It's beautiful.
I want to become a Rav one day, like a Huawei.
You become a Rav like Reb Zalman.
Like the way I need to be.
Beautiful advice from Reb Aaron to Reb Zalman.
No, I need to be.
Just a few years divide you.
Thank you very much.
Seems like the key is achieving balance, even within the positive core, which is your essence. Yeah, that's part of it. Okay, Kevra, also stark. Enjoy your day and make it a meaningful one, and one filled with integrity and honesty, one in which your and our highest angels are manifested. Thank you.
Bye.
Reb Jacobson, very, very interesting interview you had with the Elba, the singer, and the lady, and the other man. That was very interesting. Yeah. Rabbi Kessin Mendel Kessin gave a shir on anti-Semitism, and he was saying that it's a very unique time right now. The Palestinians never shot rockets into central Israel before. He said that America is not supporting Israel like it has been in the past. There's some such strong things going on now. He said that there's a very big darkness in the world now, and Gog and Magog is Mirz Hashem coming soon. And he says something very positive, which is that the Yidden got pretty much their full measure of tsaras already from World War I, from World War II, from Chalmaniki, from the pogroms, and that when Gog and Magog happens, the Yidden are going to be basically okay. Like it's going to be very, very scary times possibly ahead. But we shouldn't. But we shouldn't really be afraid, because we're going to be okay. The Goyim are kind of going to work things out. Things are going to happen, and light is going to come.
Why is the posuk in the thing to Ilim or also it's a vessel for